Once upon a time, in a kingdom nestled between mountains and the sea, there ruled a king named Kafid. His wealth was beyond measure, his power unchallenged, yet he was known far and wide for his cruelty. He taxed his villagers into poverty. He treated his villagers horribly. He crushed anyone who dared oppose him. His business didn't bring in enough revenue for the year, so he fired them all. He was very mean and cruel, and the villagers said he had a heart of stone. King Kafid was also a shrewd and ruthless businessman. He controlled the trade routes, manipulated markets, and dealt in debts like a puppeteer pulling strings. His subjects lived in fear, whispering curses behind closed doors, but outwardly they bowed and cheered, for to defy the king was to invite ruin. One day, King Kafid decided to go to a birthday party. It was a special party that he had paid for his niece. Even though he was just surrounded by family, he was very emotionally lonely as well as physically lonely. He was growing weary of his golden palace and the servants that surrounded him. King Kafid decided to hop on his horse and venture into the vast, untamed forest that bordered his kingdom. It was said to be a place of ancient magic, feared by the villagers and avoided by even the bravest hunters. The villagers hardly ever went into the forest for fear of never returning. The villagers that lived by the forest spoke of weird and creepy sounds at night, but King Kafid feared nothing, for he believed himself invincible, untouchable by the world's dangers. As he rode deep into the forest, farther than any had dared go before, the trees grew tall and thick, their canopies blotting out the sun, casting the world below into a perpetual twilight. The air was heavy with the scent of lavender and moss. The only sound was the rustle of leaves underfoot. Suddenly he came upon something moving by the bushes. It was a large, majestic snake, its scales shimmering like emeralds, coiled in pain. It was clear the snake was in distress, its movements sluggish and weak. King Kafid, though heartless, was intrigued. This snake, so unlike any other, seemed almost regal in its suffering. Without a second thought, he dismounted and approached the snake. Perhaps it was the loneliness of the forest or the eerie beauty of the creature, but King Kafid decided to help. He cautiously took the snake gently in his hands and carried it back to his palace. Over the days and weeks that followed, King Kafid cared for the snake. He fed it, kept it warm, and tended to its wounds. The villagers whispered of this strange change in their king, but none dared speak it aloud. He began to bring the snake with him wherever he traveled. When he traveled to places in the village, he took the snake. When he went over to his family's house, he took the snake everywhere. He even made the snake a bed that lay right next to his. King Kafid himself couldn't explain why he felt compelled to save the creature. He only knew that for the first time in his life, he was needed by something, and this filled the void in his heart. As time passed, the snake grew stronger under his care, its eyes brightening, its scales shining more brilliantly than before. And as it healed, so too did something within King Kafid. He found himself spending hours by the snake's side, speaking to it as if it could understand. He told the snake about his conquests, his wealth, and even his loneliness of never having a wife or children, which was a secret he had never admitted to anyone. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and gold, the snake uncoiled itself and looked directly into the king's eyes. The king felt a strange unease, a sense of foreboding, but he brushed it aside. He had saved the snake's life. Surely it was grateful. He began remembering all the good things he had done for the snake and all the good times they had had. These thoughts put his mind at ease, but the snake did not bow or cheer in thanks or gratitude. Instead, it struck with lightning speed, sinking its fangs deep into King Kafid's arm. The pain was immediate, searing, as if fire coursed through his veins. King Kafid stared in disbelief at the snake. "Why?" he gasped, falling to his knees as the venom spread. He began to feel his legs shake and his body go into shock. "I saved you!" he shouted, feeling his voice get weaker. The venom spread to each organ quickly, and King Kafid fell to the ground. He realized the truth. He had a vision that the snake was not a creature of this world. It was a mirror, reflecting back the darkness in his own soul. It had been in distress because he was in distress, poisoned by his own greed and cruelty. The snake had given him a gift, a final painful lesson that no man, not even a king, could escape the consequences of his own nature. Moments later, as the darkness closed in, King Kafid's last thoughts were not of his wealth or power, but of the life he had squandered and the chances for kindness he had ignored. When King Kafid opened his eyes, The bright white walls and the rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor told him that he was in a hospital. He didn't recognize the people around him. He looked under the sheets and didn't recognize the frail, pale, and thin body. "What happened to me?" he murmured. A nurse heard his whisper and answered, "Your Majesty, your horse came to the hospital. Everyone thought that was awkward. Your horse traced them back to the forest where they found you lying, your body lifeless and cold. They noticed that the snake that bit you was long gone. They said your face was twisted in pain, but you had a faint hint of a smile, as if in the end you had found some small measure of happiness." King Kafid's mind swirled with confusion and fragments of memories. The snake, the venom, the revelation. It was all still confusing. He needed someone to care for him now. He needed someone to feed him now. He also needed someone to care for his wound. How the tables had turned. He remained in the hospital, haunted by the vivid memory of his encounter with the snake. He had felt the life draining from him, the coldness seeping into his bones. He wondered if he was strong enough to make it through the night. As King Kafid laid in bed, a woman approached him. He thought to himself that if he was a king, then does he not have security? Who let this scary-looking woman in his room? She told him to drink a potion that she had concocted. She told him that if he drank it, he would be cured and the venom would disappear. In return, you must treat people with kindness, fairness, compassion, and humility. King Kafid agreed, and he instantly drank the potion, not leaving a drip. It was the most awful-tasting serum he had ever sipped. After all, his palate or taste was reserved for the finer foods and drinks in life. He slowly drifted off into a deep sleep, remembering the horrible deeds he had done, like firing his whole staff and not giving the little boy on the street money to feed his family. He remembered how often he used to scream at his employees and not give them their whole check amount. When he woke up, he was strong enough to go back to his palace. It was only fitting that as a joke, his servants didn't bring one of his fancy cars. They brought his beloved horse. King Kafid was a changed man. He looked at the world with new eyes, seeing not just his wealth and power, but the suffering of his people, the emptiness of his riches, and the hollowness of his past actions. The memory of the snake's bite was a constant reminder that no amount of wealth or gold could shield him from the consequences of his own cruelty. The king decided to invite the villagers to the palace. They came cautiously, unsure of what to expect from their once feared king. Some people packed and left the village before they could hear the news. They thought that if he was holding a meeting at the palace, then it had to be bad. The villagers that stayed began to gather. They noticed something different about him. His stern expression had softened, his cold eyes now held warmth, and his voice, once harsh and commanding, was gentle and sincere. "My people," began the king, "I have wronged you. For too long I have ruled with greed and cruelty, caring only for my own wealth and power. But I have been given a second chance, a chance to make amends." The villagers murmured among themselves, scarcely believing what they were hearing. "A witch doctor came into the hospital and gave me a special magical potion. It cured me and took the venom out, and now I am fine." King Kafid shouted proudly. "King Kafid, that was not a witch doctor. That was my grandmother. She refuses to let us comb her hair. She wanted you to believe that it was a secret potion, so you would feel strong and maybe feel happy enough to give us our jobs back," said the young lady. "From this day forward," King Kafid confessed, "I will be a different king. I will share my riches with you, the people who have suffered under my rule. No longer will you live in fear or poverty. Everyone can return back to work immediately and receive a raise. The wealth of this kingdom will be used to build schools, your businesses and homes. Every child will be educated, every family will be fed, and every person will be cared for, even your pets." As the words left his lips, the king felt a weight lifting from his heart. The villagers, stunned by this unexpected turn, began to cheer. Tears of relief and joy flowed as they realized their lives were about to change for the better. True to his word, King Kafid transformed the kingdom. He distributed his vast wealth among the villagers, ensuring that no one went hungry or homeless. He listened to their needs, established fair laws, and worked tirelessly to create a kingdom where all could prosper and live happily. The once dreaded king became known as the benevolent king, loved by his people for his generosity and kindness. And so King Kafid ruled for many years, his heart full, his soul at peace and his kingdom flourishing under the light of his newfound kindness. Years passed, and King Kafid's reign became a golden age for the kingdom. The villagers, once downtrodden and fearful, now thrived under his benevolent rule. The kingdom became a place of prosperity and joy, a shining beacon in a world often darkened by greed and strife. King Kafid was loved by all, and his transformation became the stuff of legends, a tale told to children at night, a story of redemption and the power of second chances. However, deep within the heart of the forest, something ancient and restless stirred. The forest had not forgotten the king's original nature, nor the snake that had bitten him. The magic that dwelled within those woods was old, older than the kingdom itself, and it had watched King Kafid's transformation with wary eyes. It knew that no one could change completely without consequence, and it had waited patiently for the right moment. The forest also knew that King Kafid would be back. One autumn evening, as the leaves turned golden and the air grew crisp, King Kafid decided to return to the forest where his life had changed so dramatically. He felt a strange pull, a need to revisit the place that had set him on the path to becoming a better man. Perhaps it was a desire for closure, or perhaps he simply wanted to thank the forest for the second chance it had given him. He also wanted to thank the snake for teaching him a valuable lesson. As he ventured through the dense, shadowy woods, the trees seemed to close in around him as he went deeper, their branches reaching out like they wanted to grab him. The air grew colder, and an eerie silence fell over the forest, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves underfoot. He finally arrived at the clearing where King Kafid had first found the snake. The spot looked the same, untouched by time, as though it had been waiting for him. He stepped forward, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and unease. Suddenly, the wind picked up, swirling the leaves into a frantic dance. The sky darkened, and a thick fog rolled in, obscuring everything beyond the clearing. King Kafid drew his sword, but the snake hissed at him as if to say no need. "Stand down," he said calmly. "This is my fate to face." King Kafid knelt, bowing his head before the creature. "I have come to make peace," he said, his voice steady. "I do not know what force governs this forest, but I am grateful for the life it has given me. I have tried to live better, to be a king worthy of my people's love." The snake circled him, its scales brushing against his robes. For a long moment it seemed to deeply stare at him, its gaze piercing into his very soul. Finally the snake spoke, though its voice was not a hiss, but a deep, resonant tone that echoed through the clearing. "You have done well, Kafid. You have turned from the path of darkness, and for that you have been rewarded. But know this, the magic of this forest is not to be played with. It does not forget, nor does it forgive easily." The king looked up, meeting the snake's gaze. "What must I do to prove myself further?" The snake seemed to smile, if such a thing were possible. "There is nothing more for you to prove. You have already paid the price. But be warned, your journey is not yet over. There will come a time when you will be tested once more, and in that moment you must remember the lessons you have learned." With that, the snake coiled around itself, its form dissolving into the mist. The fog began to lift, and the clearing brightened as the sun broke through the clouds. King Kafid stood, feeling a strange mixture of relief and apprehension. He returned to the palace, but the encounter in the forest weighed heavily on his mind. The words of the snake echoed in his thoughts, a constant reminder that his redemption was not a one-time event, but an ongoing journey. He knew now that he could never become complacent, that he must always strive to be the king his people deserved. And so, King Kafid continued to rule with kindness and wisdom, but he also remained vigilant. He knew that one day his past might return to challenge him, and when it did, he would be ready to face it with the strength and humility he had gained. In time, King Kafid's transformation spread far and wide, becoming a legend that was told in every corner of the kingdom. He had learned that true wealth was not found in gold or jewels, but in the love and respect of his people.